arrested when the truth comes out. Our nation is, people are alleging this and that and that. So that's one phase, whether Nigeria has acted outside international law. That's one issue. The second issue, however, has to do with Kanu's conduct outside the nation. There's been a level of hate rhetoric, which is, for me, has been most unfortunate, issuing from Kanu outside. But for me, hate rhetoric is an issue which can only be judged by the laws of any nation. So we come back to the issue, was it right to have, for me, quote unquote, kidnapped? You can say intercepted as much as you want, but I think that Kanu was kidnapped, and that is wrong internationally, and it's wrong morally.
Some critics have said that the federal government was fast to arrest Nnamdi Kanu, but when we look at other issues like the bandits still ravaging the northwest and some part of the northeast, the kidnapping still ongoing, and also the issue with the Boko Haram, and you begin to ask that how are they so fast and so quick to arrest? The situation with IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu and the others are still being left to go unchecked.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question, because that also goes to the heart of what the issue we began with. Why do some people say, look, let's go our way? The government cannot wash itself clean of what seems to me a kind of comparative energy in pursuing the destabilizing, quote-unquote, forces in this nation. If I may take ourselves back, maybe you remember once when I threw a challenge to Buhari, and I said, what I expect from a commander-in-chief, from a true leader, and this is, early, in the sort of the malevolent activities of these groups. I say, what I expect, now that we've identified those who are killing farmers and taking their farms, occupying their villages, is to issue an order, give a deadline, an ultimatum, say that any illegal occupant of any villages, farms, and so on, is given 48 hours to quit. After which, the mightiest forces of this nation will be unleashed against them. Yeah, it was ignored. It's because I said so. Many other people have said so in different forms. But I'm coalescing, challenges which have been thrown to this government, say, just show leadership where it is essential. And so when years later, a head of state comes out and says, we will respond to these people in the language they understand. Now, that is what I had expected him to say years ago, at the very beginning of the insurgency of the cattle people, especially as it was clear they were organized. And their leadership, the Maeti Allah, their leadership should have been arrested ages ago, long before IPOD was declared a terrorist organization. I have allied myself with those like Autumn and others who said that Maeti Allah should have been declared long before then a terrorist organization. And the evidence was there. A state governor passed a law for the protection of his own people and their productive means, their livelihood, their very dignity. And a group got up and said, if you don't rescind that law, we'll show you. You haven't seen anything yet. This is not an anonymous statement on internet. It was not fake news. The leadership of Maeti Allah actually threatened that government and have proceeded to put their money where their mouth is. Nothing has happened to them. We have not seen the same energy, the same deductive, organizational sleuthery mounted against these people. I'm not aware that even one of them has ever been called for questioning. And what did Igboho do? And they didn't even call him for questioning. They just attacked him in the middle of the night. I mean, illegally and constitutionally. So people are right to say there has been an unbalanced, unequal, and irregular approach to security enforcement in this nation. And why should anybody be surprised that one after the other, people are getting up and saying, all right, you cannot secure lives, and overtly, provably, you're clearly showing, shall we say, favoritism to one part of the community against another, whether you're talking about religion, in terms of religion, or you're talking about in terms of sex whatsoever, and say, oh, well, in that case, we don't have a nation. They have a right to say that.
And how would you advise the federal government to move forward? Talking about all this now, you've identified some pitfalls in the way that the arrest of Nnamdi Kanu has been handled, and also the way the DSS raided Sunday Igboho's house. For Nnamdi Kanu, for starters, how would you advise the federal government to move forward in terms of his trial and other things that will come up after now?
To answer that kind of question, we have to ask ourselves, what is the position mentally, spiritually, economically, politically? What's the state of mind, the collective state of mind of a vast section of this nation? And that state of mind is best described as distrust, total distrust. This government has earned itself, rightly or wrongly, that's for the government, that side to decide. But anybody who's telling this government that the people of this nation still trust it, I'm sorry, if the government believes that, it's really plunging this nation further into the abyss. So when you have this level of distrust, which will be denied, I know, there's only one thing to do, I think, to try and win the trust back of the people. And in political terms, it's called Government of National Unity as an interim measure. That's all. Interim measure, especially towards the next election, in order to have also a continuing confab, among those who execute policies, in order to also regain, of course, basically to regain the sense of participation, of involvement of the people. I know it's a very hard pill to swallow, but as I said, it's a kind of as an interim thing. During that process, you will structurally examine the Constitution. Okay, I know they're tinkering with it here, they're tinkering with it there, but then we've been going through that ages. There have been constitutional review under various regimes. And sit down, admit your inadequacy, because this has become glaring over years, even before the last election. As I've said over and over again, spoken intimately, very privately and very frankly to members of the government and the ruling party. And the distrust is too deep. And I believe that it's only a confab which operates through a government of national unity. It's an interim measure, which can actually just suggest, offer a sliver of hope for the continuity of this nation. So much damage has been done over the past few years, a lot of damage. I mean, it's visceral, it's spiritual, and it's pragmatic. You have a situation where, to cite some of the atrocities which people like Igboho try to remedy, for instance, you have a situation where this group of people who call themselves Fulani herdsmen, headed by Mieti Allah, can go to that western corridor or your Okeo area, northern, they call it Okeogun, that place which I'm very familiar with. These are my hunting grounds. I know the people there very intimately. And raid, go there at midnight, kill people with impunity, burn, and till today, not even a statement of sympathy from the central government. I mean, what do they take the rest of us for, even if we're not directly affected? How do you expect us to continue normal existence when we read every day Bayelsa, all the way deep down Bayelsa, the herdsmen have struck? Banditry is a criminal, straightforward criminal thing. We can say before the security, before intelligence, before this, before that. But when a group of commercial people who hire their cells, and then people see policies of government geared towards encouraging and actually facilitating their aggressive penetration through attempts, legislation like what I call aggressive accommodation, like Ruga, for instance. And we see attempted legislation like the control of water resources throughout the whole nation. The suspicion is so deep. You see, is this centralist program, even as we're crying federal, regionalization, decentralization, policies are being mounted, some successful, some sneaky, which the nation may be not aware of yet, but others just shut down, you know. One notorious example, which I cited earlier, even taking advantage of a pandemic like COVID to try and control relationships between states. I hope you remember that when I actually spoke and I said, wait a minute, you can control the borders of the country, but don't have no authority over that. We're not at war. That's what I said at the time. One stupid voice, you know, responded to me and said, oh, we're at war, COVID is war. Somebody in the Americas said it's at war. I'm not talking metaphorically, I'm saying we're not at war. And therefore, just leave these very intimate control strategies to the states and mind your central business.
Let me just ask this question on a final note. Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of IPOB, arrested, Sunday wanted. What do you think will happen next? Do you see a situation where we'll have more Sunday Igbohos, more Nnamdi Kanus arising from the west, the east, the south?
We already have them. They exist inside, within, and they exist outside. Why do you think the security people are chasing the telephone numbers, using, who are the backers? We're going to deal with those who are backing them. We're going to go through their iPod, iPad, iMam, you know, and see who they've been communicating with. The next thing you know, they'll be picking people off the street because the numbers on their phone said, you know, they've been talking to. I haven't spoken to, I don't even know him personally, but if somebody said I should have a chat with Kano while he was in exile, yes, I would, absolutely. If he called me, I would respond, I would return the call, I would chat and discuss what he thinks he's doing. I would tell him, listen, stop all this assault on police stations. They are human beings. Why are you slaughtering them? I mean, or why are you ordering your people to slaughter? Are you involved in that? So they're looking for sponsors everywhere. And so I'm quite sure that there are sponsors, there are people who support them. But we've heard this before. We heard about sponsors for Boko Haram. And we heard that, oh yes, we've got a list of them, and they're all going to be brought up in court very soon. They'll all be named. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a name. I haven't seen anybody arraigned yet. Maybe it happened. I'm sorry, I'm not always there. I'm not au fait with whatever is going on, so let me not lie against myself. But I wouldn't be surprised if faster than we've seen the arraignment of the sponsors of Boko Haram, of the bandits, of the Fulani has been faster than we've ever witnessed that. We will see absolute revolutions galore, accused, alleged sponsors of both iPod and Igboho, probably even their own relations. You will see.
So are you saying that Nigeria should, even if they're able to stop Sunday Igboho, for instance, stop Nnamdi Kanu, Nigeria should be prepared for more Sunday Igbohos and more Nnamdi Kanus to rise up and continue the struggles of this one?
I'm saying they're already there. I don't want this government to deceive itself. They're already there. It's not Igboho who's the issue. It's not Kanu who's the issue. It's a collective distrust, disenchantment. That's the word I want. Collective disenchantment with the conduct of this regime. And that's why I say it can only redeem itself. It can only reverse this downhill course it's embarked upon by now coming clean, trying to open a totally new page. Even forget the past. And let me use this opportunity to say this. And it's in response to some of the statements which have been made by some governors from a certain part of the country and some politicians. Nobody is saying that this problem began with Buhari. Nobody is saying it began with his government. Literally every president post the military era has committed lamentable crimes against the people, either through neglect or through action. Hardly any governor, any president is free of the charge of, shall we say, encouraging killings, massacre, for instance. Hardly any. Hardly any president is innocent of anti-democratic actions, very often avoidable, whether in terms of withholding revenues, which are mandatory for the various states, interference, or during elections. And I want to advise people, please let people stop making invidious comparisons, because if we want to open the chapter of governance malfeasance of every president we've had since the military was supposed to have left the state, we won't get to any productive, proactive, remedial activity. So I'm willing to say, let's just, push all that aside and say, how do we move on from here? And so I want all this business, we met this, and we do this by the self-excusing by Buhari. Yes, thank you. Take it for granted. You did not create Boko Haram. We accept it. You did not create Mayeti Allah. But what did you do about it? That is the question. Or what should you do from here on? It's the only way we'll save our sanity and also make the slightest progress. Otherwise, as I said before, all this language, all this discussion will be purely academic when, as the saying goes, hits the fan.
Professor Wole Soyinka, thank you so much for your time today.